It's your girl Cesare, aka the pretty producer, aka the singing scholar, and I just want you to jam with me real quick. It's not that
I'm a pioneer. I'm a trailblazer. I'm someone who really believes in identity, knowing who you are, knowing whose you are. I'm here to transform those who I meet, transform the atmosphere of where I walk, where I stand. That's who I am, and that's my purpose.
and I can't come down. I can't come down. Like Nehemiah, I am on the wall, and I can't come down.
You know, when people come to my page, I want them to know that it's okay to unlearn to learn. It's okay to set a new trend. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to understand that there's a process to everything. Hi, I'm Cesare, and I sing to exhort.
Harmony is you and me,
I speak to empower.
and we'll glide.
This is the art of speaking life. We understand how important it is for us to learn to use our words, and I write to enlighten you.
Our destinies high.
Understand that you were made specifically for this era. And I personally, I don't come to impress. I come to improve. And I'm here to guide you to know who you are, to understand that you have a right to walk into your identity and to shine your light, because we all are ambassadors for Christ. So welcome to my channel. All right. Well, hello out there. Hello to Facebook. Hello to Twitter. Hello to LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm so happy to be here, and I hope all is well with you guys out there. So, welcome to Speak Life, where we just have real life topics from a down to earth perspective. And I'm thankful that some of you are able to join at this different hour. So, we're doing it an hour later this time. And I'm glad that some of you have been able to make it. And of course, those of you who are catching a replay, there's nothing wrong with that as well. So let's just get right into it. So I'm excited because last week I had said that we were going to do a certain type of series. So, hi, man, how are you tonight? How's everything going this evening? Thank you for joining. And if any of you are interested, please feel free to share this video so that someone else can be blessed before we enter into a new year. So tonight I really wanted to kind of jumpstart this whole series as I was talking about last week, and it's about changing lanes, basically preparing for 2023. And so I was also saying last week that every new year, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to change on January 1st, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a breakthrough on January 1st, but there is still something valuable about preparing for the year, because we want to enter in with a new identity. You know what I'm saying? We want to be able to enter in with a fresh perspective, and being able to let go, let go of the past. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as far as letting go of the past. I had did this actually for the last couple of years. We've talked about this a few times, but I think it's worth to, still kind of add on some new insight and to repeat some things, because we all will find it difficult at some given point in time to let go. And it's just a given fact, because sometimes, jumping into something new can be very uncomfortable. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. So that's why we're going to talk about some of those bits and pieces of what it really means to let go. So let's just first start out with the most obvious, when it comes to letting go. Letting go will allow us to lose a lot of dead weight, whether that's physical weight in some cases, and also just mental weight, spiritual weight. There's a lot of things or people sometimes where we get intertwined with, and they can be very heavy. They can be very detrimental to our well being. And I know some people might say, I already know this, but obviously we still go through struggles, right? Very realistic struggles with relationships or friendships, connections, etc. So I want you to really keep in mind that there's a true benefit where we start to really let go of things that don't belong. um, a lot of times, as I mentioned, sometimes we can get a little prideful. I'm being very honest right now, where we think we know that already. We think we know it all. We think we've got it all together to map out a certain way of life, so to speak. And that's not always the case, because we still need to be encouraged every now and then. We still need to be reminded to stay on the right track. So tonight, I want to repeat about this whole notion of letting go of dead weight, letting go of dead conversations, letting go of things that do not serve a purpose anymore. I also want to emphasize, because sometimes when people hear the phrase let people go or let something go, they think it has to be let go with pain, or we have to let it go with bitterness. We have to let it go with sadness. Not necessarily, because sometimes it's just a matter of just reframing how we see things or how we view situations. Letting go also means maturity. Letting go is also not only a gift to yourself, but also a gift to that person. Or, you know what I'm saying? When that time is right, when it's actually mutual, when you know that there's certain things that are benefit not just for you, but also for the other person or the group of people. This actually can fall in the category of family. It can fall in the category of friends. I'm glad that you're listening. And it could fall into the category of, just like I said, different levels of relationships. But the reason why I said that we want to be mindful that we don't have to let go with bitterness is because think about how, when you first had a certain relationship, like I said, this is very vague, where it could be family, friends, however you want to decide to put it, in your own understanding or categories. So think about how at the time when it happened, at times it might have been very beneficial. Why? Because it was a time for that, was a season for that. It was supposed to be during that time frame where sometimes we might serve as a blessing to someone, they may be a blessing to us, because it's the timing for that. But when the timing is up, I think sometimes we can get caught up with not understanding when that time is up to let go, and understanding that it doesn't have to mean that I have to point my finger at someone and say, you're bad because we're separating, we're going our separate ways. So I really want to emphasize this, especially closer towards the end of the year, because as I mentioned, over the last couple of weeks, people tend to pop up from the past, like all the time, trying to make, trying to get in where they fit in, trying to, see if they fit into your 2023. Or they might see that you're doing better in life, and they see that you're looking better, looking fresh, stepping into some things. And so they want to be, down with that. And sometimes you have to be honest and say, no, this is not the time, because this is not our season. So, like I said, however that type of relationship or relationships look like, understand that it's for the benefit to let go from that particular perspective. I think that too many times, and I have to emphasize this again, that we associate letting go and putting things to rest with negativity all the time. I mean, especially, and it's no offense or throwing shade to people out there who do a lot of, like, podcasts and things like that. And but people are really on this whole bitter train, you know. And it's like, my goal is not to encourage you to be all mad about someone or tight about a situation, but to be more in a situation where you are recognizing that it was beneficial at the time frame. It was beneficial at that particular point. So, as I mentioned, letting go has a lot to do with being able to identify where the blessing is slash was, and then also being able to identify where you are now. And I know that some people don't really have the consideration or the capacity to care about where others are, but I'm one of those rare people that do. So sometimes when I'm in a situation where I'm letting things go, and this is obviously being led to do this thing properly, meaning when I say led, because some of you come from different walks of life, meaning that I'm led by the Holy Spirit, meaning that I'm being guided where I want to be mindful of, like, how am I dealing with certain kinds of people or situations. So when you begin to separate and recognize, okay, identify what's been a blessing, recognize that it might be better for them as well, that to me identifies maturity. Because, like I said, sometimes when we hear this whole letting go, it's surrounded by a lot of bitterness. It's surrounded about, oh, it's about me, because I got to move on. I have to do this. I have to be this way. And that's nice that we all have our things that we are concerned about. But honestly, it doesn't really hurt to love on other people enough to recognize that it's their time to go as well. So I know that might be a different twist of how some people have heard about letting things go, but I want you to be encouraged to know that in order for you to truly move on to a next chapter, especially like I said, since we're changing gears, we're getting ready for 2023, you want to be in that position where you don't have room in your heart that's full of bitterness, because it's that very same bitterness, that very same amount of emotions that begin to bottle up and build up. And then you might wonder, why are you stuck? Why are you still feeling the same way that you were feeling in 2021? Why is it that 2022 did not look any brighter than 2021? Why is it that, and I say this with, with sadness, but why is it that 2023 is going to look the same for a lot of people if they're not willing to change? You know what I'm saying? No bitterness, but striving to get better. Yeah. So, this is the purpose of changing lanes, is to strive to get better. And then I think another thing that I like to say from a very transparent perspective is that striving to get better is not perfection. And I think that, social media, we've got just the whole structure of life right now is so geared and pressured around, you have to have it all together. You got to look a certain way. You got to present things a certain way. You got to have a certain amount of money. You got to have this and all this stuff like that. But if your heart is not positioned to have the capacity to thrive with love, to thrive with even retrieving a blessing from someone, to thrive with wanting to even just want to be better. And I know that sounds pretty simple, but it's really powerful, because what we really think about ourselves is who we will be. We will become that. So sometimes when we take our eyes off of, like I said, this whole bandwagon of letting go with that bitterness and all, and saying, oh, I don't need these people. I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna cut that off. And oh, it just has to benefit just me. When we start to really just relax off of that type of attitude, we get into a better mindset of humility. We're able to leave and walk off of a, symbolic life stage gracefully. We're able to leave situations and speak a word that is soft. And this is biblical. So those of you that listen to me or know me, I'm a believer in Christ. So at the end of the day, the Bible tells us that a soft answer turns away wrath. So if we can learn how to respond to certain things, and even like I said, being prepared to exit out of 2022 with grace. Okay, maybe there were some things that just did not work out the way we wanted them to. I understand that happens. Maybe there were some relationships that kind of fell out, or maybe there were some things that you had high expectation for, but they didn't really fall in place the way you thought they should. So this is a form of encouragement and a reminder, as I mentioned earlier on in this particular segment, that everybody does not have a quote new year or January 1st. Your new year, your breakthrough may very well be in April of next year. It may very well be in September of next year. It might even be in February, or it might be January 3rd. And I'm throwing out random dates for a reason, because we don't want to be fixated, like I said, on the bandwagon of trends. And trends is something that I think keep us kind of boxed into not learning how to let go. And I know that y'all probably are saying like, well, how does that kind of add up? Well, let's talk about it, right? So when you have all these different trends that society follows by, and everybody's jumping on the same bandwagon, everybody's, utilizing the same type of method to do something and all these different things, everybody's like in the same boat, right? What happens is that you begin to get accustomed to what a general opinion is about something. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of pushing of self. There's a lot of pushing of, kind of having revenge when it comes to letting go. And I'll be honest with you guys, and I know some of you, this might be a bit much, and maybe some of you might get it, but I have to look at reels, for example, like on Instagram and Facebook. And so some of these reels, for example, they come with a certain intention, where there's like a deliberate form of humor that's not funny. It's more like kind of getting revenge at people. It's more like, letting it be known that I have something to say about you, like throwing shade and things like that. And so while some people might find it funny, not realizing that we're falling into a trend of understanding that we're not trained to learn how to properly let things go, because we're following by what we think is appropriate. That, like I said, that might be a bit, beyond some people's understanding, but In some sense, I definitely understand. I'm glad that you do. So I say that to say that sometimes we have to do the opposite. We have to do the opposite of what we see all the time. And sometimes to letting go means to let back in at a later point in time. So that's another thing. So we don't want to be so caught up with just because we see something's not working out right this minute. And this is not for everybody as far as the example I'm using, but there are some things that you may have to revisit. Sometimes in a lot of cases, some things are just too early. That's why I said timing. Timing is everything. So sometimes we might try to approach something too early. We may try to end something too early. We might try to start something too early. So sometimes you want to be, that's why I said in that mindset where you're humble enough to run with the season, whatever that season looks like. So I hope some of that, kind of makes sense because these are some of the things that I've been thinking about as we get closer towards the end of the year. If you really, really understood how valuable your life is and how valuable life is in general, there's a lot of stuff that we would be, even saying like after tonight, there'll be a lot of things that you'll be willing to say, you know what, I don't even want to get too petty about certain things. I don't want to get too caught up with certain things. I don't want to get too fixated on certain things because you'll recognize that there's so much more promises that awaits if you're willing to not look at the sidelines. And actually, guys, I made a song about sidelines that I'll put out next year. And because sidelines are distracting, especially when you're trying to walk straight. Like if there's a certain path that you got to go, and you got people on this side. I had to put my hands in a little closer for Instagram. But when you're trying to look this way, that way, this way, and you've got a mission that's straight ahead, you're losing focus. So letting go can also mean to allow God's timing to bring things together. Exactly. Yes. So sidelines. So sidelines has what, a lot of instigators, a lot of spectators, a lot of watchers. You know what I'm saying? Just a lot of stuff be going on. In other words, on the sidelines. But if you're not destined to be on the sideline, that's why you got to keep looking forward. So in other words, in order for you to be able to look forward in going into 2023, there has to be this discipline that's set forth where you're not paying attention to what's going on the sidelines. So, and like I said, if you have a different level of understanding with the capacity to be warm about things, to walk in humility, you're going to find that, hey, guess what? People are still going to be bitter on the sidelines. That's just a given point. It's not going to end. So I wanted to say as a as a public announcement, a public service announcement, that hey, guess what? People are still going to be sour grapes in the world. They're still going to be bitter. They're still going to talk about you. They're still going to look at you and say, "Oh, well, who do they think he or she is?" or whatever the case is. It's going to keep going and going. But guess what? You still have a life to live, right? You still have something to do that's, I would assume, that's great in 2023, right? So when you start, like I said, if you start to really focus on things that matter, things that really matter. I'm not talking about the what you call it, the celebrity gossip, or the B level celebrity gossip, or the C level. And I say like C level meaning like the social media personalities and all these different distractions, right? A lot of these things are on the sidelines. So this is what I mean by, like I said, kind of honing it in, keeping focus, finding out more about who you are. So that's another thing about how to let go. Some people ask, yeah, what else can I do to let go? Well, letting go after a while, I'm not going to say it's seamless. I'm not going to say it's always easy, but it is not impossible when you begin to really understand different levels of who you are. So this is why I mentioned, over the last couple of Speak Lives, where if we really took time to understand who we are, if we took time to really understand our own identity, yes, after a while, you begin to learn. And so you might even hear a very common saying when people get older, or they grow older, they say, oh, well, at my age, I don't really have time to deal with A, B, C, and D, or my tolerance level is lower, or I don't really have time for this and that. And you know what? That's actually a blessing. But mix that with that common saying, because we should, the older that we get, we should be a little less tolerant to certain things. So why don't you put that together with the humility? Imagine if you can, and if you can walk in grace to gently say no thank you to that, no thank you, or this is not where I'm going, this is not on my mission. So sometimes we could just say things like that, call it a day, exit, that's it, boom, we're done. So yes, so say it loud. And yes, you have to walk. Yes, walk in that value, whether you're a king, queen, God has made us to be of value. So when you walk with that understanding, you're going to find that there's a fine level between, or fine line, I'll say, between confidence and being proud, vain, being really prideful. There's a big, 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 big difference. So when you're confident in who God has made you to be, you'll be able to gracefully make decisions to let go of things that don't belong. You'll be in a mindset to finally recognize that, oh, hold up. If something is breaking up or something is passing over, that means that the season is over. That's all. So there's some things that we don't really have to spend a lot of time, you know what I'm saying, crying about it, whining about it, gossiping about it, bickering about it, just drawing out a whole plot about it, yeah, the pride ride. So it's like, we don't want to be on the pride ride for 2023, because guess what? You might have recognized it, that the same kind of things that we probably did in the past, we kept getting the same results, probably. I'm sure of it. Because if you say that you've been doing the same old thing and you've been getting different results, I find that hard to believe unless you can tell me, and I'll say okay. But at the end of the day, the purpose of us talking about, letting go, is because letting go sets you free. It sets you free. I mean, and I'll share a personal example where there were times when hold on one second. Actually, I see a comment. And there are those who love to rehearse their misery. Yeah. So you got and you got the pride ride, you got that misery. So when they all twirling around and cooking it up together, hanging out together, guess what? It's just going to ride right in 2023, and it's going to be the same old stuff. And so you got to ask yourself, do you want to be the same old type of person? And so one of the personal examples that I was going to share is more so about just kind of looking at relationships that I had in the past, not necessarily romantically, just relationships in general, And I look at the fact that there were people that I've come up with, there are people that I shared a lot of laughs with. If you do know of me, I'm very, very giggly. I love to joke around and stuff like that. But yet at the same time, I do like to be very deep on some days, or probably a lot of days. But I like to have that balance. I don't like to be deep 24/7. I feel like, we could be deep all day, but that's kind of boring. You want to laugh, you want to lighten up a little bit, right? So, having all that said, I had a lot of different levels of connections with people in passing, or, growing up, like I said. And then, it really hit hard when I recognized that a lot of us have gone separate ways. And at first, I was looking at it like, oh, well, I gotta let this person go. Oh, they let me go. And so I'm, talking in that kind of way, but not realizing the blessing and what it meant to go separate ways. Because at the end of the day, too, if we try to hold on, especially like coming into 2023, if we try to hold on to certain kinds of relationships and just different situations that don't really benefit us right now, then that's why I said it's going to turn into dead weight. And then, what's interesting, sometimes when we overstay in a certain season, it becomes extremely sour. So something that was once so sweet, something that was once so wonderful, it gets sour because we overstayed. We overdid it. I see a comment here. Yeah, I'm going through it now with family. Yeah, and I can understand, and just encourage some of you out there. I know that family, I hear this all the time. Like, I even know it for myself. And I've always said, sometimes I'd be like, man, I'm actually related to certain people. But yes, we are related to certain people because, hey, God has his sovereignty, and he still has a special plan for our family. However, from a graceful perspective, we have to understand that even though I might have family and I might want the best for everybody and stuff like that, I know that for me, I have a certain calling, and I have to pursue that calling that goes up to Christ first and foremost. So if other people are not getting with the program, then whether you're blood or not, you still got to live for purpose. And so what we can do, and I always encourage people, because like I said, I have been through it. I still see it in my own family, where it's like, if I think if a lot of family members would recognize their value of who they are, and even kind of going a little deeper, and I don't want to go like too deep, but if you want to go a little deeper from a familial perspective, if the family would have recognized their lineage, how rich lineage is, how rich last names are. We have last names for a reason. Now, some people, argue with all that. Yeah, well, certain people gave us the last name. I'm not into all that. I still identify first as a spirit, then I identify as a woman, then I identify as whatever my ethnicity is, and then I identify with my last name. So we have lineage, we have heritages when it comes to family. And so I really feel like if family would aim to get to know themselves first in Christ, and then if they would be able to, oh, you're the third, that's good. And then the family would aim to understand the heritage, the purpose of the lineage of the family, there would be so many different things that can blossom out of the relationships between family. However, right, you got to say another however. Guess what? It sounds ideal, right? But everybody's not like minded. Everybody's not like spirited. And this is one thing I've always said, I'll say it publicly again, is that just because we are blood related doesn't mean that we're both saved by the blood of Jesus, that is. So we can very well share blood. We can very well share same skin color, all that good stuff. But if we don't share the same values and we're not identifying from the same spiritual lineage, then this is why also we see a lot of separations going on. And this is very vital to what you call it. This is very vital to letting go. This is the same, tie-in. It's the same similarity, because sometimes you do have to be in a position by any means necessary. I don't care who they are, if they're not serving God, because because let's keep it real. Can we talk about it? Real life situation from down to earth perspective. If your family or whomever say they really love you, wouldn't the love of Christ be demonstrated a little differently? I'm sorry. Last time I checked, love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't and this is actually in the Bible. Love doesn't boast. It's kind. Love is kind. So sometimes it takes for us to be, and this is something I actually had a revelation about, is that sometimes we have to be separated from certain family members so that you can actually grow in Christ. And I'm obviously talking to a very specific audience right now, those of you who are saved, because when you understand that literally God comes first before anyone and anything, there's a certain behavior that you begin to walk into and you begin to exemplify, and then everything else falls into place. So when someone is supposed to be your family or they're supposed to love you, I have to base that off of First Corinthians. I think it's First Corinthians 13. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Y'all be like, that's not it. Get it together. I think it's First Corinthians 13. Let me see. No, it's not. So, is it? Give me 1 second. I want to actually I want to look up the actual scripture. This is why you got to listen. You got to like make sure you listen to people, right? And see what they are actually saying. So, oh, wait. It's First Corinthians. Okay, chapter 13. Okay. So it's First Corinthians chapter 13. And I just want to read this to you guys, if you don't mind. Those of you who, really just have the ears to hear, to really understand that this is also a part of what it means to understand why you might have to let go sometime, and understand why we do enter into different levels of blessings. Thank you. I appreciate that. So love is patient. Love is kind. This is First Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. So it's 4 verses I'm going to read. So love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. We talked about that. Man, you said pride, right? It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Wow. Okay. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Excuse me, I'm sorry, not preserves. Always perseveres. Always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. So I'm going to stop there. So I wanted to just emphasize about, so some people really have a difficulty of understanding, like, oh man, is it wrong to stay away from certain people, even if they're family? I'm just going to have to say it's not wrong, because you have to understand from the perspective of, like I said, biblically speaking, does a person demonstrate what I just read? Love is patient. So we should be patient with one another. And it doesn't mean, and let me just say this, it doesn't mean that those of us who might have distance from certain family members, love is patient. So there will be times where you have to be patient, because maybe they haven't arrived at that part or point yet, and that's okay. So, but love is patient, love is kind. So we have to look at, and this is not just about family, but we got to look at people in general. Like, are they demonstrating these things? Are they making an effort to? We don't always get it. We're not always going to get it on a perfect, note. We're not going to always hit it on the nail, because that's the purpose of having God's grace. He graces us to get better. He graces us to get right back up. So, and I love how it says it keeps no records of wrongs. I mean, how many of us understand how people do this all the time? And that's why I even mentioned, this is indirectly related earlier, about reels, like on the things on Instagram and social media and stuff like that. How, sometimes, people jokingly are keeping records of wrongs to make it as humor. So we kind of get into this twisted mindset thinking this is the way we express love, and it's getting out of control to some extent how we view certain things. So I don't expect everybody to get with that, because that's not my goal. But my goal is that if you have an ear to hear, if you have a desire to really understand, I want to change for the better. I want to be able to walk in grace for 2023. And I don't want to care about what other people think. 'Cause that's what I had said last week, where letting go also has to include you not caring about what other people think. That is, if it's something that you're doing that's righteous. Like if you're actually making a decision that that's right, and you know what it is, you have no time to care. Because as I mentioned, people are always going to have something to say about things. But also, let me just say this too, when it says love is patient, love is kind, right? And it doesn't envy, it doesn't mean that you're so soft that you get walked over. So there's a difference where you still have to be stern. You have to be very firm about what it means. So you're not falling through the cracks of how people tend to misinterpret things. People love doing that, really taking something just totally out of context. Now, sometimes we all can do that, but if you do something like that, at least we can recognize to say, hold up, I was wrong about this, and then correct it. But you still got to be firm. You still, here we see a comment. So guard your heart. There we go. Guard your heart, for out of it flow the issues of life. You are so upbeat, balanced, and giving. Part is your God gifted personality, but how much is you setting walls around your guarding? How much is you setting? I don't understand, but yes, but guard the heart. And thank you. I try my best to be upbeat, because after a while you just don't care. It's like, I mean, people they're gonna be mean, they're gonna cry sometimes, they're gonna be bitter, and it's like, but if God sprinkles some open heaven of joy for us to receive, I'd rather take that and not really mind if somebody doesn't like it. You know what I mean? So I think what you said about garden, maybe you talk about my stuff in the background, but um listen, man, listen, I be beating people sometimes and then have to apologize. Yeah, I mean, because sometimes, I mean, because like I said, we're all human. You know what I'm saying? So this is why it's good to be honest. There's nothing wrong with people. This is what I want to encourage a lot of you to understand too, especially in this whole notion about letting go. Honesty is okay. And like I said, regardless of how honest you are, people are still going to have a problem, period. It don't matter. But being honest is being truthful. It will set you free. Okay, the truth literally sets you free. And so and I definitely want to just re-emphasize about the comment about guard your heart, because that's why I said, even though love is patient, love is kind, and it doesn't envy, you still have to be on guard. And obviously that's it's very biblical. It's not something that just, we just make up to say. This is an actual kingdom principle. This is an actual mandate for you to survive in life. So I see, yeah, the truth will have the world hate you. Yes, yes. So that's why, and that's another thing too. When there's certain things that you are informed about prior to entering into the world of opinions, you'll begin to filter out things, because once again, you know how to operate in grace now. And operating in grace, from my perspective, and this is just my perspective, operating in grace means to me that I still walk with my head high, even when people might have something to say about it, or even when people might have certain opinions, or maybe they want you to get into the world debates, the world things that are going on, and how do you not side with this, and how do you not care about this? And I'm like, listen, I got life to live, and maybe that's not my calling. I'm not in that particular area of life. So a lot of people would try to throw you under the bus if you're not really participating in certain things. I think some of you have probably experienced that one level, shape, or another, whether it's political, whether it's financial, whatever. Everybody has a different opinion. So as you can hear, what is the common theme? Everybody has something to say. Why not listen to what the Lord has to say? That's usually what I'm arriving at this stage of life. Like, what does it matter what other people say, especially if you can be graceful about it? The Bible also tells us too, because I want to just, like I said, help somebody out there to understand that we're not to debate with fools. And fools meaning like fools don't, doesn't mean that they're dumb, right? Because some people are actually intelligent, but it's equivalent to foolery when people are just talking up a storm to work you up, to get you all mentally divided and spiraled out of control and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of fools might have some facts. They might be actually spitting some real facts, but fools like to go around in circles to keep things going. It never ends. It just never ends. And the Bible warns about that. So there's certain things that, like I said, you can choose. That's a part of letting go when it comes to coming into next year. You can choose to let certain things go. You can choose to not participate in certain kinds of conversations. You can choose, as I mentioned earlier on, to not look at the sidelines. Just keep looking and focusing. So yeah, so it's just like, and the thing about it, when you mentioned, like, yeah, about I'm not debating with you, sometimes, like I said, yeah, you got to just cut it. No more, none of that. And then there are other times where there is a such thing as a healthy debate. That's why I said it, in humility, when we can learn how to operate in humility and grace, we'll learn how to speak certain things. We'll still learn how to be firm on certain things, because there's that fine balance there as well. So, but like I said, if we can seek and understand to be better in wisdom, we'll know when to approach certain situations in different times. Because sometimes it does come up, debating will come up and whatnot. So I want to encourage you, moving forward, that if you plan to enter into this year, and I don't have to know like your personal goals and things like that, what your goals are. The certain things that you're seeking God about. Whatever those things are, make it your priority to do your part, which is, you might want to represent what First Corinthians 13 says, as we talked about how love is kind, how love is patient, how it doesn't dishonor others. So even in the letting go of people, as you can see, it doesn't dishonor. So if you have loved someone at some a point in time, as I mentioned, sometimes there are seasons where we do, love will still not dishonor. So I've even recognized, and I've had some issues with people in the past. There's some people that I don't talk to as of today, and I don't want to talk to them ever again. But not in a way where I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to that person. This person is crap. And I don't feel like that anymore, because I had to grow up. I don't care. I care enough to let the people go because I don't want to be bothered in that kind of way. So I'm looking at things like that from that perspective of I would feel lighter if I can approach things a little differently and not try to put people out there like, some people just be talking about people. And that's another thing too, that you cannot let go if you're dishonoring people. That's just a real fact. I don't care if, like I said, if something happened, it was wrong, because guess what? You still got to move on and forgive. So that would be, if I could give an example, it would be me hashing up stuff from the past, and I'll be just posting it and just writing about it or talking on the phone with somebody about it, texting people, taking screenshots because I know people do petty stuff like that, taking screenshots about this person and all that. Why? Why? When you're so much more valuable? Why, if the person did serve as a blessing then, but it's just not for now? Why, even if the person did hurt you, but there's a greater level of freedom when you forgive. So, and another thing is too about forgiveness. People sometimes they take that out of context. They think that forgiveness means that we all got to skip down the street together, hold hands, and talk back with one another. No, 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 no. So you take good care and good night to you, and much love to you. Yes, and we just go ahead and forgive. And if you need a break from your family, take a break from your family, but keep them in prayer. Keep your door like kind of cracked. Not open all the way, but just a little opening. But honestly, good night. So but this is what I'm saying, as far as like I recognize that when it comes to letting go with love it makes a huge difference. It's a burden that's released. And like I said, letting go with love doesn't mean that you go and find the people and reunite with the people and try to talk to the people. Because another thing is too, when it comes to letting go, you have to recognize what kind of path you're on. Are you both walking in similar paths? Because if you're not, it's going to be always a constant clashing. So that's why I said that since things are very seasonal, be mindful if the season is up, gracefully walk away when the season's over, gracefully come back if that season needs to be resumed at a certain time frame. Because as you all probably can relate, we grow, we develop, we change, we go through different things. Life situations happen. So sometimes that changes how we think about things. It changes how we approach situations. And you might have known somebody X amount of years ago, but they've changed, years later. And I think even myself as an example, like I said, I've come up with a lot of people, but I'm not the same. I'm not even the same how I was last year. So, and I have to know that it's not about, I'm not trying to convince anybody. That's about letting go. My goal is not to come to impress people or to say, hey, look at me. No, I need to look up. I'm doing this for an audience of one. So when we can get into a mindset like that, where nobody else matters. And when I say nobody else matters, it doesn't mean that you don't, you know, gracefully take compliments or gracefully, receive what people are saying, or when people want to honor you or when they want to bless you. You can, it's nothing wrong with that. But what I mean by is like when you, like I said, so focused on understanding how much value you have, that even you walking in a certain grace, you'll be able to uplift others because you are graced, and you can remind them that they're graced as well. Like this is not a competition. So when you can, like I said, speak from that type of mindset, I would really, really strongly say to all of you, those of you who are listening out there, and those of you who are catching the replay, that that's what it means to let go. That's what it really, really means to let go. And also, my last thing that I want to say before we wrap up is that when you let go, it is a process. So I don't want people to get caught up with, like I said, timelines. That's why I said everything has a timing. Guess what? Your timing and my timing, they're never the same. We might be going through similar things sometimes, but please understand that your walk, my walk, somebody else's walk, they're all different. So don't get in. I just want to encourage you. Don't get caught up with, oh, you saw somebody get over this really quickly, or they let this go. It could be a habit. It don't have to be people. It could be a habit. It could be a lifestyle. So maybe you didn't quite let go a certain lifestyle that maybe somebody else had at a certain time frame, but it doesn't mean that you give up. It doesn't mean that your time hasn't come, or doesn't mean that you missed your time. So I encourage you to really keep a mindset, like I said, to understand that you are graced, and that, you really don't have competition when it comes to your soul. And what I mean by that is where we're just two totally different people. And when you look around, even in your family, everybody's different. So that means that you have, like I said, your own individual journey. And when you care enough to pursue that individual journey with God, that's when you begin to have enough capacity to care about others, but you also have the wisdom to filter out things that don't matter. And this is an ongoing process. That's why I always speak about lifestyle practices as opposed to just, overnight things. So this is not just like quote motivational speaking. This is really lifestyle training so that you can understand that this will always follow you for the rest of your life, even beyond 2023. So I hope that, if I know there's a ton of information out there, but if you care to replay this, maybe to listen to it again, to take something from it, or even if you revisit it sometime in, 2023, fine. But just understand that some of the things that I shared tonight, I do believe they're so vital for us to carry forth on a whole new level. I believe it'll benefit you so much where you really will be unbothered about what people think because you have taken the time to invest in the journey that God has given you. So, having that said about this whole journey, I know that there's a lot of people, especially like I said, we close out the year. People are still looking for answers. They're still looking for their purpose. They're still wondering like why they're here. That's actually one of the questions I get a lot when I am doing. I do a lot of work in the mental health industry, and I never really came out saying that. Actually, since I started, I've been in it for a year now, so and it has been one of the best types of work that I've ever done in my life, where it's like a whole another level of speaking life to people. And so a lot of the times I hear people say, I don't know my purpose. I don't know why I'm here. And so I encourage you tonight, if that's somebody, if there's somebody out there that has like a similar question, I want to encourage you that there is an answer. And that answer is going to be found if you just ask God directly. But you have to believe with an open heart and a believing heart. So if that's you, I would just encourage you right now, if you can, to get into a quiet place. It's a very short prayer, but it's very sincere. So, and then those of you who are already saved, it's okay to say this over and over again. Because, like I said, it's all about the genuineness. Do you mean it with your heart? So repeat after me. And what will happen is once you have sealed this prayer to say amen to it, that means that you are officially saved, meaning that you have given everything of who you are to Christ, meaning that you give your heart, your mind, your soul, and you'll start to recognize that a lot of these things that I talk about, they're going to start to begin to resonate even the more because now you've taken a choice to reach out to the source who can manage these things for you. So, as I mentioned, if this is you, let's just say this quick prayer. Just repeat after me. Dear Lord, I acknowledge that you, Jesus, are the Son of God. I believe that you died on the cross, that your blood was shed for my sins, and that you arose from the grave and conquered death. I understand that I was born a sinner and that I have sinned by disobeying your commandments. I ask you to forgive me for these sins. Please change my heart to be like yours, loving and full of forgiveness. Help me to obey your teachings as recorded in the Bible. Bring people who can help me on this new path. Be my Savior. Be my Lord. Thank you for saving me from death and giving me new life. Amen. So if you said that prayer, that means that you have sealed your heart, your soul, your mind, every fiber of your being, and you have given your life over to Christ. And I want to just quickly emphasize that it's not about, having a religious form and fashion of being saved. It's about relationship. So because you believe, let him do the rest of the work. And if you need to reach out to me to send me a message, if you have any questions about, oh, what's next, I'm more than happy to send you over some resources. Actually, I actually know someone who works with a great Christian group that can help to give some further directions and things like that. But in the meantime, I encourage you to get a Bible, get a hard copy Bible, or as I always mention, if you don't have a hard copy Bible, you can always use a phone with the apps. They have apps and stuff like that. And I'm encourage you just to start to read it. So having that said, thank you so much of all of you who have joined tonight from various sources and places. And no matter where you are in the world, as I always say, have an excellent day, night, or afternoon. And those of you who are catching the replay, you are loved and appreciated as well. So we will be back. And I'm looking, I think next week is Thanksgiving, right? So I'm thinking that I would do Speak Life on maybe the Wednesday. So I'll make an announcement about that. And yeah, so we won't be doing Speak Life on Thursday because I believe Thanksgiving is on Thursday. So we'll do Speak Life on that Wednesday. And of course, obviously, if you can't make it, hey, catch the replay. It's perfectly fine. So having all of that said, I'm going now off of Instagram. Bye, Instagram. Have a good night. And then to all of you out there, like I said, I'll be back on Wednesday. You take good care. You can leave me comments and things like that. I'll be sure to respond to them. And that's it. Bye. Who is Cesare Brown?
What's up, it's your girl Cesare, aka the pretty producer, aka the singing scholar. And I just want you to jam with me real quick.
I'm a pioneer. I'm a trailblazer. I'm someone who really believes in identity, knowing who you are, knowing whose you are. I'm here to transform those who I meet, transform the atmosphere of where I walk, where I stand. That's who I am, and that's my purpose.
And I can't come down. I can't come down. Like Nehemiah, I am